Why, hello there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Optimus Tom's In the Zone. I am, of course, your awesome host, Optimus Tom, and sorry for everybody who was watching live before with the little bit of a hiccup. I was like, all right, guys, we're gonna go live, and then my computer blue screen. So it was a very interesting experience, little bit known, to say. But it was also after that, like I just kind of like cursed at the top of my lungs, and then that prompted me to sneeze, and then I bit my tongue, and then I had to take a drink of like water, and it was just nasty. It was in a very unfortunate series of events, but it was all the torture and pain that I go through to bring you awesome League of Legends content, but of course. So on this week's episode of In the Zone, if you guys have not been paying attention to Twitters or Facebooks or whatever social networks you would be using in the beings of, there was a very epic best of 3 this past Monday, I believe it was, between Dignitas and Legion, and my camera's really bugging me, sorry guys. Haha, hello there! That's a little bit better. But there's a very epic best of 3 series in the most recent Curse Invitational on the North American side between Team Legion and Team Dignitas. Of course, everybody knows Legion and Dignitas. They've been on MLGs. Legion was formerly Reflex. Dignitas was formerly Rock Solid. And everybody knows all those guys throughout the history of League of Legends. If you don't know, well, you've kind of been living under a rock, and I probably mentioned both of those teams like 20 times, 25 times, considering I've done 25 episodes of In the Zone. So, yeah, it definitely was a very, very awesome series, and one of the key things in this series actually came down to the jungle picks. Like, I was analyzing the series, going through it, and I was, like, watching the best of 3s. I was trying to find if something really, really stood out, and the junglers for either side, I Will Dominate on Dignitas and Lot of Mortis for Legion, really just kind of stood out to me, not only in their picks, but their play style. What happens with the meta right now, junglers that have been seeing a lot of picks have been Dr. Mundo, Shyvana, Udyr, Lee Sin, these junglers with extremely fast clear times that necessarily don't need a lot of gank potential, but can punish overextensions. All these characters can counter jungle, meaning you can hinder your opponent's jungler by doing something productive with your own jungler, and then you kind of get into these little bit of farm fest thing. It's kind of like the style that CLG Sam Vicious will play every now and then, where he picks up his Udyr, he jungles, and that's about it. He'll sit in the jungle, he'll gank when it's basically a guaranteed kill. Udyr is one of those champions that even though he has a hard CC in his bear stance zone and walks up and goes "Muh!" to somebody, he doesn't necessarily have straight kill potential out of that. He could burn flashes easily, which is what you're going to want to do to set up ganks like a minute or two later in the future, but he also really punishes overextensions because even if you have that flash to burn and you're pushed all the way up to your enemy's tower, he's going to be able to close the distance because activating that bear stance every couple of seconds gives him that boost of movement speed in that little bit of a burst, and he's going to be able to catch up to land another stun within 5 seconds of hitting you. He'll be able to stun again with that bear stance, just like that, and you'll get stuck. That's all it is. You'll just get stuck in that one space. So he's very, very powerful at punishing overextensions. You don't really see a lot of this hard CC junglers anymore that will go through a rather slower jungle, have potential to be countered because they're a little bit slower in the jungle, and you just really don't see them that much. Nautilus has really been the first one we've seen to be coming into more prominence since the faster jungle style has come into play. And he has some tips and tricks that like the rest of the guys really don't have. Like, he has basically every skill on him has some sort of crowd control effect except for his W. His Q is a hook that is going to be pulling him and his enemy towards a point. His E is going to be doing an AoE slow. His ultimate knocks up everybody it hits in a line and disables them, and then of course disables the main target for the longest amount of time. Even his passive is going to be locking someone in place for just a short period of time. So it really he's basically a crowd control bot out of the jungle. You don't really see him being played too often until recently because he doesn't jungle fast and he needs the protection and he can't really, do what these other junglers do. Even if Shyvana and Udyr and Lee Sin don't have hard CC out of the jungle, they will constantly be in other people's lanes just to cause imbalances in the lane, force the thing that you're going to be ganking, especially against these slow junglers. If you force the illusion that Udyr is going to be ganking top and then force Nautilus to go top, he's not going to be able to jungle that entire time. Not to mention he's already a slow jungler to begin with. Udyr can then just fall back into his own jungle, farm up a couple creeps with Phoenix Stance before Nautilus goes back and really finishes his first creep camp. So there's all these slight advantages that the faster junglers have over these slower crowd control junglers. But it, it all trades off in dividends at a certain amount of time, which is really interesting to see that both Lawn and Mortis and I Will Dominate in these matches, especially in the first match, went for junglers with harder CC and less of a quick clear time, with the exclusion to Game 3, which we'll talk about in a little bit, where they switch it up. So it's actually really cool to be able to see a jungler on these teams be playing both styles of jungle and how they utilize it in a full kind of team composition. So without further ado, because I have a lot of shit to talk about with you guys about these games, I'm going to switch it over to my monitor, which is over here on my side, but would be over here for you guys, so whatever. We can see here that I'm doing this from the Twitch VODs, cast by Crumbs and But I Love You, two very, very awesome guys. So forgive me if I click somewhere else on my screen, the VOD automatically minimizes. I tried popping it out and doing it that way so that it wouldn't minimize on me, but yeah, it didn't work out, especially with the blue screening computer and everything. So we can see already that Lawn and Mortis is actually picking up a jungle Moo Moo, whereas I Will Dominate has picked up a jungle Nautilus. Now, both of these teams, just a little bit of history for you guys that may not have paid attention to a couple of the other tournaments, both of them have a unique play style where they play better when they're behind than when they have some sort of insurmountable lead early on. They don't really play for an early lead. Both Dignitas and Legion have shown that they're really comfortable in this kind of come-from-behind play style. Dignitas against Curse in the previous Curse Invitational was that ridiculous game where Dignitas lost all their inhibitors, did all these Barons, Curse tried to run around them and just knocked down the Nexus twice, and Dignitas clawed their way back into this, waited for their inhibitors to respawn, took a Baron fight, and actually wound up winning that one. So obviously they were behind at that point, but they played very, very strong come-from-behind game and really took advantage of their opponent's flaws to really pull them ahead. Legion actually does the same exact thing, where they're able to take their opponent's weaknesses after, they're able to sit back and be in a little bit of a defensive posture for a while, identify the enemy team's weaknesses, and pick them apart because of this, therefore propelling them ahead and taking the game because of it. When Legion tries to play aggressive, it doesn't always work out for them. One of my past in the zones I actually did with these guys, they tried to go for this quick clear and push the tower kind of strategy, and it really backfired on them. It was against Orb in a Go for Law tournament, and it really didn't work. And then they tried doing it again against another team. They tried doing it against somebody in the second game after Orb did it to them in the first game. They couldn't really defend against it because it was too early of a game strategy. They then took the strategy, assimilated it for themselves, and tried to push it back. They had this big advantage, but then they kind of fell into a defensive posture, and instead of when you're coming from behind and identifying weaknesses that way, you just kind of let the other team catch up, which is something you just don't want to do. But anyway, junglers tend to be very important for both of these teams because, especially with Dignitas, when you have a jungler that can be progressive into the later stages of the game, it's really going to benefit you a lot more. So Dominate favoring Nautilus in a bunch of these games, actually. Well, what are the perks of playing Nautilus over playing a different jungler, like an Amumu or like, a Maokai, for instance? He has massive CC out of the jungle. We've already talked about this. He's a massive crowd control bot. Naturally tanky through the late stages of the game. He doesn't necessarily need to build straight tank items. You can get Aranduans on him, which is fine. But you could go for that Shrelia's Reverie and then a mixture of other items to really benefit your entire team. Pick up an Aegis of the Legion on him, and it doesn't really matter because he's just naturally tanky throughout the end stages of the game no matter what because he's Nautilus. Other than that, he has a couple downsides. Obviously, the slower jungle we talked about. Low damage potential outside his initial burst of his spells. His Q, his E, and his R altogether, I think at level 60, a potential 500 to 550 damage with the staggering blow, factored into that. But at the same time, that's it. He doesn't really have a lot of sustained spell casting, and his auto attacks are really slow and clunky. It's really in there to get the passive off, and that's about it. So he doesn't really have the same kind of burst. He has burst potential, but doesn't really have a lot of sustained damage later on. And if you try to build him in this kind of damaging build style, it doesn't really work out because you trade damage for tankiness, and it doesn't work out on Nautilus. He's also a very counter-jungleable. Because of his slow jungle, we already talked about this a little bit earlier, a fast jungler can run circles around him on the map, take advantage of map positioning, on top of counter-jungling and creep camps. So, taking a look at the team that Dignitas has, they have Graves, Nunu, Rise, Fiddlesticks in the top lane from Voyboy, and Nautilus out of the jungle. So they kind of have this big team CC mixed with a little bit of team AoE. It's just interesting because Nunu can slow, Rise can disable, Fiddlesticks can fear and drain, and Nautilus can slow and disable like a champ. I don't really know why they picked Graves in this one. I know Cutie Pie's been playing a buttload of Graves, but at the same time, you know, if you factor in like an Ashe or Varus into this composition, it's absolutely insane. The only thing I can think of is if you ran a Mumu in the jungle as opposed to a Nautilus, which actually is what Mortis is running. Ever since he got a little bit of a buff in one of the previous patches, he's been popping up in a lot more games. Hell, even a Zingy, the solo middle Fiddlesticks player, can be playing a Mumu in the jungle with the same kind of build he does on Fiddlesticks with double Dorian's ring and boots into Sunfire Cape, and it works. So Amumu is just a very powerful character that people maybe not have caught on to just about yet. You know, he has decent clears due to his Despair dealing AoE % of maximum health damage, and then his Tantrum, where every single time he gets hit by an enemy champion, not only, you know, Tantrum does AoE damage around him, but on top of this, he's going to be able to, you know, just reduce the cooldown every time he gets hit by physical damage. So he has some pretty decent clear times. He's got CC on his bandage toss, and he's tanky by nature. You know, he could build some AP for some damage, which is something Nautilus normally can't do. We see Amumu getting Abyssal Scepters often, you know, Sunfire Capes for more AoE. Percentage of health damage really helps scale into the later stages of the game, because as those enemy teams get progressively tankier and harder to take on, Amumu just naturally deals with that. He also has this built-in passive. Whenever he auto-attacks something, he's reducing their magic resistance. So with that on top of an Abyssal Scepter, he's just giving fuel to this Vladimir Cassiopeia combo from Legion to really dish out terrible amounts of damage into the later stages of the game. However, he's also a very easily counter-juggled. He could deal damage, but, you know, he'll trade off a little bit. Like, if he doesn't build super tanky, you know, he doesn't have a shield like Nautilus does. So building, you know, a more of a AP-centric Amumu doesn't really trade off. Kind of like building a more AD-centric Nautilus doesn't necessarily trade off well. Plus, if you miss your Q, your gank is almost done. Like, if you don't land your bandage toss to initiate on the gang, you better have some really damn good positioning, otherwise you're going to screw it up. Or if you get good positioning and force them to burn flash before bandage toss, but you miss it on the follow-up, you're not picking up the kill because of it. So he's a little bit of a skill shot-based champion, which some people tend to like and some people really don't tend to like. So with all this in mind, I've written down some timers for myself, so that way I could speed through, and the end of the zone's actually not like 2 hours long. You know, it's actually, you know, within the 45 minutes I intend them to be. But right away, you know, we're gonna see, like, okay, well, what do these champions do? Like who's, like, what's gonna happen that these two later game champions going off against each other, who's gonna take an advantage first, and, you know, how is it gonna happen? Well, it's very interesting because we can see here from the mini-map, Amumu's going to go for a level 3 gank, leveling up his E, his W, and his Q. He's able to get this amazing bandage toss through 2 minions and pick up a kill on Scar, because Scar doesn't think he's going to hit that. That's insane. So Mortis obviously been practicing the Amumu, ladies and gentlemen, lands a hell of a bandage toss between 2 minions, picks up a kill, and starts the engine going. Now, we talked about this. Both junglers are a little bit slow on the uptake, and any advantage that these champions will get over one another is going to spiral them out of control ahead of the enemy jungler because of this. So Amumu, right off the get-go, gets a gank in at about 4 minutes into the game. Nautilus is probably thinking about clearing his rates for the second time at 4 minutes into the game. So Amumu's already leaps and bounds ahead of them. Although this kind of works out against him because he gets a little cocky thinking he could go like, oh, well, I'm ahead of Nautilus, let me counter jungle. Oh, wait, Nautilus has so much CC, and now Ryze comes up from the middle lane, and, well, Mortis, you know, he pays the price for being too ballsy there. But other than that, going on in the rest of the game that will affect these junglers a little bit, on this top lane is a point of contention. You can see here that Void Boy's Fiddlesticks is harassing the ever-living crap out of Vladimir. Fiddlesticks tending to be a little bit of a counter pick to Vladimir because he is one of the only champions that has more sustain in that ridiculous drain. Look at that. Like, Vladimir is known to be a very sustaining champion because of transfusion, but when you put a Fiddlesticks up against him, it looks like nothing. You know, this bottom lane also, Corki's getting a lot of damage down onto Nunu and Graves early, you know, even flashing out of there, picking up a kill due to his Ignite. So they're being a little bit aggressive on the bottom lane, and Amumu's kind of coming in here to help, you know, carry things along. So Amumu's having more of a presence on the map than this Nautilus, and it's starting, you know, to affect his lanes early on. Even taking a look at the CS, you know, Corki's 6 CS up on Graves. Doesn't seem like a whole lot, but he's 6 CS plus that kill up on him. So now, like, if we just take a quick second to pause, Corki has a Phage, or Fag, when Graves has 2 Doran's Blades. So Corki's already that much far ahead of him. Cassiopeia a little bit ahead of Rise. Rise not completing his catalyst yet. He's at this awkward stage where he did get double buff from that Amumu in the jungle. But he's at this awkward stage where he's been forced back once or twice already, so he didn't have the money he wanted to buy the items he needed at that time. So he was forced to get different pieces of his build and head back to lane at an awkward timing that he's not really used to or wanting to do. Cassiopeia, in the meantime, has gone back once after getting an assist on that first blood and picked up double Dorian's ring on her boots, so she's just progressing along her build like normal. That top lane hasn't seen really any action from either one yet, so Voyboy's Fiddlesticks kind of still abusing the crap out of, still abusing the ever-living crap out of Vladimir in the top lane. So, we fast forward a little bit farther. Oh, wait, and, I'm actually still on pause mode. Sorry about that. But, we're going to see here that the first game from Dignitas is actually Voyboy coming from the top lane. So this is very interesting because, well, first off, but I love you using this replay function that I've used, which is cool. But we see that, he's come in here, he gets the ultimate down, and he ganks Cassiopeia. That's the first gank we've seen from Dignitas, and it's on Fiddlesticks. This gank is, this gank, and then the following gank we're going to see here where, which we'll call Scar actually comes down from the middle lane to gank on the bottom here. And pick up, 2 kills from that, which is really good for Dignitas. But these come 4.5 minutes after the first ganks from Amumu. So Amumu's gotten, his presence on the map. He has a Philosopher's Stone and a Heart of Gold already, whereas Nautilus only has a Heart of Gold. He's picked up a Null Magic Mantle too, because I guess he wants to harass his top lane here, but Amumu has the same kind of idea. So, Cruz is going to dive the tower here. Fiddlesticks has a lot of sustain. Amumu's going to try to do something, but he really can't do too much. Cruz is taking a lot of damage. He actually winds up, falling to this Nautilus, but Amumu, baits everybody out of the tower with his Vladimir here, and winds up, rooting them in place with his ultimate. Q's Voyboy here for a kill. So now, Amumu's 2-1-1, and, he's, waiting and waiting and waiting, and, Rise is in the bottom lane, so he has to go back. Cassiopeia comes up from the middle lane, and now they're just going to collapse down onto Dominate. Cassiopeia burns the ultimate to slow him down. A lot of Mortis is in here with, his Despair, and he's just kind of zoning him out, forcing Nautilus basically just to die to Cassiopeia, even though he's been, building magic resistance. This is, going to prompt Dignitas to take a dragon off of this one, but still, that Amumu right now, 2-1-2 to comparison of, I hate this viewer right now, I'm sorry, 0-1-2 to Nautilus, so he's that much farther ahead. Nautilus has 12 CS on the jungle, in the jungle item, and now a Dragon Gale, but still, that Amumu is leaps and bounds ahead of Nautilus, and just pushing these lanes to be ahead of the enemy lanes. So now Dignitas, they're playing that comfortable, okay, we're a little behind, we're going to have to play to come back, let's hope they make a mistake or something. One mistake they might have actually made was playing Vladimir in the top lane against Fiddlesticks. As we'll see in just a second, Fiddlesticks is still kicking the ever-living crap out of Vladimir. Vladimir comes in, tries to transfuse, Fiddlesticks is just, I'm going to drain you. And there goes half of Vladimir's HP. Meanwhile, Fiddlesticks is at full. Vladimir's going to try to sustain himself back up. Fiddlesticks going to be wait, come back. I have another half of your HP to take out still. So, no, it might be one of those little bitty problems for Legion as the later stages of the game progress, especially since Amumu's only visited this lane once. However, we'll do see here that, other members of the team are coming in. Probably comes in and picks up a kill on Voyboy. And even though Voyboy's doing a hell of a job going against, Cruiser in the top lane, is even Amumu's ganking the bottom at the same time. So now Legion just ever pressing map presence on them. But in that top lane, even though Vladimir is behind in CS a little bit, 63 to 70, Fiddlesticks has picked up 2 kills, but he's also died twice. Vladimir's died twice, but Cassiopeia has a kill. Amumu has a kill. There's all these assists floating around. Even though it's only 6-5, Voyboy not too far ahead in that top lane, which is, something I obviously wanted to have happen because, they picked it and Voyboy was, beating the ever-living crap out of Vladimir in those early stages of the game. We saw what was going on, so, but how is this, we see the bottom lane obviously getting a lot of harassed down there and the Mumu's come down to help them out, but how does this kind of transition a little bit later into the game? Well, when you start counting for the fact that, the rest of your team is going to be doing and everything, you try to come from behind and take dragons. So you do whatever you can. You take the dragon when your enemy team is out of position. Probably is actually all the way back at base. Fiddlesticks flashes in with an ultimate, though, but he flashes into a bush after Vladimir and Tarek, 2 champions that you kind of don't want to go for a kill on. Cassiopeia actually comes in here. A lot of Mortis lands an ultimate on 3 of the 5 members of Dignitas, which is insane because it allows Corki's Gatling gun to just shred everybody in that little enclosure. Corki will eventually die after a nice Valkyrie over the wall to Nautilus's red buff, but look at all the damage it's dealt down. The only person to get away is Graves with like 1 HP left, and the rest of the team winds up trading 1 in a dragon for 4 members of Dignitas. That is not a good trade. Even though Dignitas is ahead in gold right now and ahead in a tower, the rest of this Legion team they're getting basically. It's interesting to see because Dignitas likes to play from behind, Legion likes to play from behind. Legion's making plays, but Dignitas is passively farming, which is technically putting them ahead in this game. They've gotten dragons, they've gotten 2 of them, and they've gotten a tower. Legion has map presence over them though, and they're constantly ganking and have a kill advantage because of this. That Amumu is 4-1-4 compared to Nautilus's 1-2-2 right now. So it seems like, these junglers are really starting to kind of pull these games together and start to win games for these teams. As we progress a little bit further into the game, I don't really have any timers for this one, but, it's evened up at 11 apiece. Dignitas still has a gold lead. But as the game progresses, Legion's going to be closing in on this closer and closer. They have more mobility on the map right now. And when a fight like this starts where Voiba wants to go into ultimate, he gets insta-gibbed by the rest of Legion. So Nunu's popping ultimates. Mumu still actually just popping his ultimate, feeding Corki double kills to try to go on to Corki. But look at all the CC, all the damage over time. A lot of Mortis picks up a kill. There's an ace. Their team just is so smart in the way they put it together, and because of the mobility that Mumu had in the beginning stages of the game, 5, 2, and 7 to comparison of 1, 3, and 3 on Nautilus. That CC on Amumu is ridiculous. The fact that he's tanky and has a Shurelius to help his team reposition like they did in that fight, help that Corki get out of there quicker. He has it before Tarek does. He has it before Nunu does on the enemy team. So it's ridiculous because he's adding so much to his team despite them being behind in gold. They've been able to ace the enemy team from behind, taking a Baron from behind, have a kill lead, but are still behind. They've lost towers and they've lost global objective dragon twice, but they just have so much more of a lead because of what their jungler's been adding to their team composition that it just doesn't really matter. Dignitas was ahead the entire game, but they looked like they were playing from behind, taking dragons to try to establish some sort of dominance because their jungler couldn't do it for them. That's one thing Amumu was doing. He was moving all over the map and he was constantly ganking and establishing his dominance. It let Dignitas take some dragons, but take a page out of CLG's book. If you can't contest the dragon, you're not going to go for it anyway because you can't do anything about it. You're going to capitalize on something elsewhere because of it. You're going to take towers. You're going to gank because you have the map presence or you're in that area of the map already. If Dignitas at the beginning, they took the first dragon with only 3 because they killed 2 up top. So they pressed these advantages, and even though, they'll be like, oh, well, we picked up a dragon and we have a gold lead. Yeah, well, you lost 2 members of your team, and we now have all this ability to start farming our lanes because 2 of you were gone and 3 of you are out of position towards dragon. We could try to collapse in on you, but if that fight goes wrong or your members revive and come back into the fight at full strength, we might wind up losing and throwing it because that's not what we want to do. So they're just pressing advantages elsewhere and pressing map control. A lot of Mortis did not pick up an Oracle's Elixir that game, or at least at the stages of the game that we saw, but if he did, it would have been ridiculous because he had triple GP10. He had a Kage's Lucky Pick, he had a Philosopher's Stone, and he had a Heart of Gold. All those GP10 items, you can easily get an Oracle's Elixir, and since you're ganking and moving around the map so much already, you just establish this insane map control because it either forces the enemy team to get an Oracles and get rid of your wards, or it just forces them into the state of being in the dark, and now they really can't do anything about it. And even though that would kind of put Dignitas into a defensive shell, which is what Dignitas kind of excels in doing, just by denying the vision and keeping the constant motion up. Even though Dignitas had wards at that point in the game, Amumu was still wreaking havoc on them. So I don't think, even if they got the Oracles and forced Dignitas to be a little bit more passive, Dignitas is already playing passive. So they're able to take such advantage of this, despite looking like that, Dignitas looked like they were behind, even though Legion was behind the entire time. Dignitas had a gold lead until after that Baron fight in the Ace. Then Legion finally was able to take a gold lead in the game. They just win from that, because as soon as they get that lead, they've already done every other single step they need to progress them forward into victory in that game. And the jungler was a huge contribution to this one. So, what do Dignitas and what do Legion do in the third game? They ban the junglers. That's right. Dignitas bans Amumu, and Legion bans Nautilus. Now, a little bit of background information as I flip over to the screen again. Nautilus is picked in game 2 as well, which Dignitas wins. You know, spoiler alert, that's why you have a game 3. So, Dignitas picks up a win using Nautilus in the jungle. Once again, this happens in game 3, or game 2, forcing a game 3. So what happens is, Dignitas bans out Amumu. And Legion, wait for it. Legion bans out Soraka. But if we progress a little bit further ahead, they ban out Nautilus. That's good beverage. So what happens here? They force Dominate to pick Jungle Mundo. Wait. Why do they want Dominate to play? Dominate's good at Jungle Mundo. He wasn't doing that good with Nautilus in game 1. Let him pick Nautilus. Let him play the character that he doesn't know as well. No, they let him pick Jungle Mundo. Why do they let him pick Jungle Mundo? So we'll fast forward a little bit ahead. There's a Kennen pick. Okay, there's a Kennen pick. That's interesting. Fast forward again. There's a Kog'Maw pick. Okay. There's a Jungle Alistar. Okay. So they've got a Jungle Alistar. Now we see a little bit of a switch here. We have 2 faster junglers. Alistar jungle has quick ganks. He could gank at level 2, hard crowd control and crowd control reduction, and he has a heal. He needs to snowball a little bit to be powerful, but he also has this little bit of like a roaming mindset where if he doesn't have the GP10s he needs or the kill potential he needs, he starts to fall off naturally because he's not farming enough or he's not killing enough. But he's a very fast jungler, and he has really powerful ganks. Mundo, on the other hand, super fast clears, counter jungles like a beast, but his ganks are a little bit weaker, especially a lot weaker than Alistar. So if you're Legion at this point, why do you want Dominate to play Mundo? Well, it's taking into account the junglers and the rest of the team comp here. Alistar, early ganks. Mundo, early farms. So if you're already going into this game and you're like, alright, well, Alistar can gank at level 2. Mundo, he can, but it doesn't work as well. Like we've seen a lot of Mortis in the past in Go for Law tournaments and scrimmages play Jungle Mundo and try to gank top at level 2, and it doesn't really work. Like he can throw a cleaver and that's about it. So your Alistar already has a little bit of an advantage in the fact that you can gank a little bit faster. If Lauda Mortis has kill potential on these early ganks as Alistar, he's infinitely ahead because he's going to start the Alistar snowball rule going on. Alistar can snowball damage without sacrificing his natural tankiness because of his ultimate. Mundo tanks and slows down, but he doesn't necessarily hit super hard until later in the game, where he does lots of damage off the percent of health from Cleaver, he has Masochism, and of course he's reducing crowd control, so he's always this annoying, big, giant Mundo thing running around in circles, burning Agony on. So it's very, very annoying, but he doesn't necessarily have damage like Alistar can, because Alistar can build damage. Looking at the rest of the team very quickly again, if we go back into the screen here, we have Kennen in the middle lane. Now, Kennen is an extremely hard champion to gank to begin with because of Lightning Rush. The middle is an extremely hard lane to gank because of how open it is. Mundo has very low gank potential to begin with. So, Mundo really can't gank Kennen. Scar is playing Anivia who can, slow and, get stunned and stuff, but she's super slow and super squishy. So their middle lane is more favored towards Legion. So maybe Legion's thinking that if we force him to play Mundo and he just farms, because that's all Mundo can do against Alistar, we can abuse the middle lane. And we can take advantage of Alistar ganks early on Anivia and keep her down. What else can we do to keep Anivia down in this game? Well, Anivia, once she gets her ultimate, she burns through a lot of mana, so she needs a blue buff. Alistar ganks. Can we jungle invade on her? If we get a timer at least on her, Mundo's not gonna be at her blue buff. Like, there's no Mundo at this blue buff. Mundo starts red buff to try to gank and, you know, get through his jungle quicker. He doesn't need blue buff. What if we time their blue buff because we take it? Then Anivia will go to take it at that 7 minutes and 10 seconds-ish mark, and we'll be there. And we could stop her from getting it, on top of the fact that our lane and our jungler can shut her down. Oh my god, this is brilliant. Awesome. So let's see how it works out for them. Let's see here. Where did it go? I lost my timers I wrote down. All the way back here. Alright. Well, what do you know? Legion goes for a jungle invade, ladies and gentlemen. Corgi, good thing you picked Valkyrie. If you didn't pick Valkyrie, there you were one dead Yordle thing that I still can't think is a Yordle because he's just like 90% mustache and 10% Yordle. So yeah, take another drink. But yes, yeah, so they go for this jungle invade. This is going to be to keep that timer on the blue buff so they know when to come back and to, you know, deny Nivea of it. Only problem is they take the blue buff, but there's an unwelcome visitor here from Nunu, and he's actually going to come in here. Like, a lot of Mortis has a little bit of trouble taking these lizards before they reset. So like Nunu comes in here and he harasses down Alistar, and like Alistar doesn't want to take too much damage in the jungle because like he has a heal, but he's not taking it for a little while. You know, he wants to go for gank potential at level 2, so he gets headbutt and pulverize. Mundo comes in and counter jungles. Nunu, you know, takes a little while to clear out the lizard. So, you know, Legion has a general timer on this blue buff. Whereas, you know, they don't know their blue buff's been taken, but Kennen doesn't really need it, and Vladimir doesn't really need it. So Alistar only really needs it for experience and maybe some regeneration for himself. So losing their blue buff in this team comp isn't really a bad thing. And timing the enemy's blue buff in this team comp is like the thing they need to absolutely do. So, you know, all of a sudden, you know, like, okay, well, we have this idea. Alistar saved his smite in the meantime to pick up red, as you can kind of see on the minimap down there. He's cleared his red buff. And so what are we going to be doing now? Like, okay, Alistar, level 3 at this point. He's going to go for ganks. Pan down, Bubba, but I love you. Alistar's going for gank. You can see it on the minimap. But I love you. You're missing it. There we go. Flashes go off. Alistar goes in. Pulverized combo with the headbutt goes down. Skara gets egged under tower, trying to give it to Prowley. But then Alistar decides, hey, I'm going to pick this up. Some people might think that's a blunder, but this is going to get Alistar one of his GP10 items so fast. First blood gold to Alistar. He's going to get a GP10. He's going to be roaming around and ganking on top of, you know, clearing out his jungle. He's a lot heavier on the ganking side. As we said, he needs to snowball. He needs to have kill potential in order to be super effective. Now those GP10s that much faster than any character in the game. You know, like, okay, let's see here. Alistar went back. Not yet. He is going to see, like, his blue buff is gone. You know, but Alistar's going to go back. He's going to get an early Philosopher's Stone. So not only is he never going to have to go back for mana or anything like that because of the regen, but he's also going to be getting, like, gold early on. So very powerful level 1 gank. But it's not the only gank that we're going to see Alistar getting. No. We see here that Void is pushing very far to the tower. Mundo's in the jungle. Look at this pathway. Like, there's a ward here that Void starts with because the one thing that could kill Fiddlesticks is well-placed ganks. Yeah, Alistar ran all the way through Void's jungle. Headbutt, pulverize, ignites, pick up a kill on Void. Now Cruiser, who had a hard lane against Void at the beginning of last game, actually throughout the entirety of last game, is now ahead. Like, Fiddlesticks is ahead in CS and gets to go back and pick up a Doran's ring, but, you know, Vladimir has the kill over him. He's able to now, like, push again, like, farm against his tower a little bit outside of the range and combat that creep score. Vladimir's able to level himself up a little bit more. Vladimir has a lot more potential than he did last game, which is a problem lane. So now, you know, Lord of Mortis' Alistar kind of starting to even things up a little bit earlier. So very interesting indeed. I'm going to fast forward just a couple seconds right here to talk about one thing. Mundo has yet to gank at all. We take a look at the creep score. Mundo is at 37. Alistar is at 22. So Mundo with 15 CS more is doing all he can against Alistar, which is at this point in time, farm. So Alistar, you know, he's ganking like crazy all over the map. Mundo, in the meantime, like, look at the goal. 15, 20 something. Even Alistar has 18 something. So Alistar's still ahead because of that early GP10. And he's ahead because of his ganks and his assists and his kill. So even though Mundo's trying to farm his hardest, you can already see that, you know, 3,000 gold differential almost for that Alistar. Like 2 to 3,000 gold. It's a little insane, especially considering it's 6.5 minutes into the game. I'm sorry, I said 2 or 3,000. It's 2 or 300. I'm sorry. But, you know, it's that much different already at the stage of the game. That's just on one character. Like, look at the Legion, the Dignitas gold. It's like 1.3k. Yeah, like, that entire, like, 300 is all Alistar over Mundo. So very, very awesome stuff indeed. As we fast forward just a smidgen bit more over here, we can see that even though they had the timer and everything, they're pinging over here. Legion's going to give up this blue buff. Now, this is something that Legion didn't want to do. They did have it warded, but the entirety of Dignitas is going for this blue buff. So you can see here, you know, like Tarek and Corki are going to come up here and try to like push it a little bit and, you know, play a little footsie in the bottom lane with Nunu and Corki. But, you know, like nothing really comes of it. So it's interesting to see that Legion had this game plan coming into the game, but then they decided to just kind of back off of it and let Scar get the blue buff. But they have so much more kill potential than they probably originally accounted for, because Alistar, you know, he's assisted in 2 kills already. They have the only 2 kills of the game, and Alistar's been in both of them. So the jungler is that much more ahead of Mundo. You know, Mundo at this point, 23 CS up on Alistar, so Alistar is going to have to do something about this fairly soon. Well, Alistar, don't forget, has the GP10. Mundo just recently going back before taking that blue buff and getting his Heart of Gold. So Alistar has the GP10 for about 4.5 more minutes earlier than Dr. Mundo. So, you know, it's Alistar is still a little bit ahead. This bottom lane in the meantime is doing really, really great things. Kalma, you know, being that squishy character he is in the bottom lane, with Tarek for that hard CC and the heal, is doing a lot of harass against Corki. Even though it looks like he's getting very low here and he's going to die, Damunlal has epic flashes. And that is not the last we're going to see of them. We're actually going to wait a second here, because this is the first gank we've seen from Mundo right now. And he's going to need to kill on it. That Kog'Maw was super, super low, has gone back. It is a 3 versus 1. Skara is coming down from middle to potential 4 versus 1. Inubish taking damage under the tower. Kog'Maw comes back. Inubish baits it out the flash. Mundo takes so much damage. Inubish actually takes the briefcase for Kog'Maw here. Mundo is super low, popped the ultimate already. Now that Law of Mortis has come in, he has to run away. Cannon's following Anivia down. Excellent, excellent jukes from Damunlal and Inubish down here, preventing, even though Mundo had basically the perfect gank for Mundo. You tower dive, you tank damage, the champions are low, and you can kill them easily. He doesn't get a kill at all. They needed the kill there, because Alistar is going to be a beast with his ganks. You know, like Fiddlesticks doing some work up top against Cruiser. Cruiser with a nice pool bait here. Void, look at this. Voidboy's taking tower shots. He gets ignited. He drains through it. He winds up actually trading 1-for-1 in a situation that looked like that Voidboy was super, super ahead and was actually just going to take it 1-0 and just walk out of there fine and keep farming. You know, Dignitas is kind of getting a short end of the stick in this game, because they're either not trading effectively or, you know, not trading in their favor, or they're just not doing anything at all. So even though, you know, like they like to play this passive kind of from behind style, you don't want it happening this early in the game when it could define your laning phase, especially when you have a Kog'Maw that late game, no matter what, he's going to be a beast. Alistar, who could snowball from the early stages of the game, will be a beast. So what we're going to see here is they are going to go for this dragon. The only thing I don't agree with here is how much damage Alistar is taking from this dragon. Actually has to pop his ultimate on it and gets walled in with Tarek. This is dangerous because Kennen and Kog'Maw was actually in there. Kennen was exposed. But Alistar saves the headbutt and the pulverize for the fight. They egg Skara immediately with a Kennen ultimate and then take him out. Alistar will eventually fall in this fight, but not before Vladimir can get Corki. Kennen is going to lightning rush out of here. He's actually going to be on the outskirts of a Nunu ultimate that pops at the last second for full damage, and he dies because of it. Kama will pick up a kill on Nunu, who is just standing there channeling the ultimate. But because Kennen kind of walks back in there to the ultimate instead of just running away, he didn't really add any more damage in that fight. He just added a kill to Dignitas. So now Dignitas steals the dragon. That's very, very important here. And evens up the gold count. So now Dignitas behind in kills, even in gold. So, this is the Dignitas playing a little bit more catch-up. So what are they going to do with this? Well, they're going to try to push advantages and gank, because Mundo has not really landed a successful gank yet. So we can fast forward a little bit and see as we pan towards the bottom lane, Mundo's down here ready for a gank. They're about to tower dive again. Taking a look at the health bars, even like Tarek and Kog'Maw are pretty high. They're basically full HP. But here we go. We have good positioning. Go in on Damunlo. Take damage. Mundo, gets tower hits. Damunlo has to flash. Damunlo almost takes down Corki with these ridiculous jukes and moves. Tarek's going to come in here, deal massive damage. Mundo gets cut off by Kennen coming from the middle lane. Scar is nowhere to be found because, well, he's a Nivea and doesn't move that fast. Nunu has to pop the ultimate to try to not let Kog'Maw pick up a kill on Corki. Corki gets a very nice Valkyrie, and because Probably misses the Shuriken, that's not a double kill there. But it was extremely, extremely dangerous. And the fact of the matter is, Mundo still has not picked up a kill on a gank. He's actually died because of it. So now Mundo, no gank potential at all. He's not really helping his lanes. Alistar, meanwhile, is going to be bullying around Skara, because Skara's like, oh, I'm left in the middle. I have this blue buff. Let me farm up a little bit. I have a little bit more CS than Kennen. Alistar's just like, nope. Alistar is 3 GP10s at this point, just walking around gaining gold. That's all he's doing. He's walking around. His constant map presence. He's gaining a buttload of gold for doing it. So, I mean, like, he's, like, in Gold City right now. Alistar's, like, the king of El Dorado, which is ridiculous. Especially considering he's only had been part of, like, 2 kills besides that dragon fight we just saw where he picked up a couple, he helped with a couple more. But, 20 minutes into the game, we'll see a little bit here. There's going to be some more Alistar shenanigans coming in, which is awesome. On the bottom lane that they panned away from, he's going to come in here and get the combo down on the Corki and pick up a kill because of it. We take a look at his items. He has a Ruby Crystal. What's he got a Ruby Crystal for? I don't know. What's he got a Ruby Crystal for? We'll see that in a little bit. But at this point in the game, Alistar is 3-1-4, and Dr. Mundo is 1-1-2. Which is absolutely insane because that Alistar is just demolishing Dignitas right now, and they really can't do anything about it. He's left all these wards up again. He doesn't have an Oracle's Elixir to take advantage of his roaming and his map presence or his 3 GP10 items. No, he's actually just content with going around and walking through wards and avoiding them and just killing Dignitas because of it. Now that Dignitas, they lost their bottom lane there, they can't contest this dragon. So now Legion is really starting to take the reins of control in this game after playing from like a kind of, they're in the lead in the beginning and then they evened out and we're kind of on the cusp of losing it. But now they're taking a dragon, they've gotten more kills, and now they're just on the cusp of like winning it. So we see Alistar, and he wants to go back here. He is eventually going to pick up, well, let's wait for the thing to go away. A Phage. So we're going to see, no, it can't be Frismal. It's, oh my god, we're going to see a Trinity Force Alistar build. And I'm just actually going to fast forward a little bit more because I'm kind of close for what I wanted to be for in the zone. So, Alistar takes a lot of damage. But look at this. Natural tankiness. 3 GP10s and a Phage. That's all he has. Pops the ultimate to be safe. Kog'Maw's able to harass him over the wall. Kog'Maw's getting very beefy. Has the pieces for his Infinity Edge. It's sub 20 minutes into the game. He's 2-0-3. Corki is 0-2-1. He's up about 20 CS, 15 CS. Vladimir's actually doing a decent job against Fiddlesticks. He's going to come in here and try to get some damage down. He's going to take a lot of damage from Mundo. I actually don't know if he's going to pick up a kill here. Let's see, Let's see here. Oh, trying to duck in and out. Dodges the briefcase. Gets tagged by the red buff now. So, he's not able to really reach Fiddlesticks. So Fiddlesticks gets away to live another day, and Vladimir will actually die. But Vladimir, he's 3-3 at this point in the game. Fiddlesticks 3-3. Vladimir's ahead in CS, so he's doing a lot better in this lane against the Vladimir. Most likely because of that early level Alistar gang, now isn't it? Fiddlesticks got punished for putting a ward down and thinking he was safe, and Alistar just came from a different direction. So they're very awesome, and I'm just going to fast forward a little bit here. This is what happens when you let Alistar get a Trinity Force. He has a T-Force, he has Boots of Mobility and 3 GP10s. I want to see who deals more damage, Corki with an Infinity Edge or Alistar at this T-Force. They try to silence him. He calls in on Fiddlesticks. Look at this. Chunks Fiddlesticks down. Fiddlesticks is draining him. He has to flash with an ult to get out of there. So, like, he uses the ult and winds up, you know, going in, and his team gets killed. Like, Alistar headbutts Anivia. He's chunking down Cutie Pie's Corki. He knocks down Corki. He's going to chase after Anivia. He's slowing him down. Tankiness. He's living with no HP at this point. He has to be very careful. He's trying to bait, like, Scar into making a silly mistake. Pops the heal, and he stays alive. Like, and then the awesome snipe from Cogball over the Baron wall, egging Skara, picking up a kill. That's a 4 for none in favor of Legion. They go for this Baron. They're healing themselves up. They're going to be A-OK. Tarek's healing. Like, a lot of Mortis is still tanking Baron with no HP. Mundo's, like, laying down as many wards as possible to try to steal Baron. It's not going to work. Like, if we look at this, a lot of Mortis has this smite up. You know, Mundo has his smite up, but he's not going to be able to really smite it over the wall like this. He's trying to cleaver it in. It's not going to work. So, like, 4, 2, and 7 Alistar, 3, 2, and 3 Mundo. Alistar behind in CS. Mundo ahead in CS. Alistar are the Trinity Force in dealing the deeps. Mundo with a Spirit Visage and an Aegis of the Legion. So, what it really boiled down to in these two games between Dignitas and Legion were the jungle picks. The jungle picks were insane for both teams, and it really, really, really paid off in dividends, especially the fact that Legion took advantage of Dignitas' lack of early ganks. Even though they're playing these later stage ganking junglers, they just push it a little bit earlier. Level 3 ganks aplenty from a lot of Mortis in both of these games. Once as a Mumu and once as Alistar, both resulting in first bloods. So he's been playing these kind of slower CC-based junglers as aggressive gankers, and it's paying off in dividends for them. It's doing ridiculous amounts of work in combination with, you know, Damunlal and Anubish on the bottom lane being ridiculous with their jukes and their presence and knowing each other so well to stay in lane that long. And Cruiser fighting an uphill battle against Voyboy's Fiddlesticks 2 games in a row with Vladimir was absolutely impressive. And the cool thing about Legion being able to identify that Fiddlesticks had the ward in the river and know to go around it to gank him and give Vladimir that push to win his lane at the early stages of the game was absolutely awesome. So really cool stuff. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this and you'll start applying and trying out some different later stage junglers. I know when I'm playing solo queue, I see a lot of Shyvanas and a lot of Udyrs and Lee Sins, and they want to clear the jungle and they want to gank, but it's not as good. So why don't you try taking one of these junglers that has some hard CC, doing the same kind of thing, maybe a little bit slower, but your gank potential is so much higher. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for tuning to Optimus Tom's In The Zone. This has been episode 25, games between Dignitas and Legion in the Curse Invitational. So guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this enough to stick around for next week In The Zone. We go live every single Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. EST over here on the ggChronicle channel. Once again, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to get out of here and, I don't know, maybe record some more stuff for you. Just check it out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/OptimusTomTV. See you guys later. God, Amumu is so sexy.